All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. It's great to have you with us today. I'm Matt Solomon today and every day, I guess I'm Matt Solomon, and I'm here with Rick Solomon. So, Rick, welcome. Great to have you with us. And thanks, everybody, for joining. Today, we're going to be diving into the 5 dangers of commodity work and, more importantly, what to do about it. So, Rick, thanks for being with us today. Very excited to get into this topic. I think it's a common issue. I think most of the profession is kind of caught up in doing that. And while it's what is known in the profession, ultimately there's a couple dangers of it. And we'll explore those dangers and so that we can really bring them into the forefront of what's going on. And also, like we said, we'll help you do something about it. It's not just about getting information nowadays, there's information everywhere, but it's hearing things, it's understanding, and then being able to take some actions about changing it, getting things better for you. So, with that, we'll dive into number one, the first danger of doing commodity work. And so, really, number one is the hours and the lifestyle that's a result of that. So, if anybody on this has ever related to working some crazy hours and getting up early and feeling tired and staying up late and working through lunch and, maybe occasionally, taking a meal off, but ultimately working through the night and all those things, you can really feel the toll that it takes on you. And whether that's 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week or 60, or when tax season comes around, 70 and 80 hours a week, the reality is that this model, as it is, really takes a lot out of you in terms of hours. So, Rick, I'm curious as your perspective and just to share a little bit more about how you're seeing, hours and that relationship between being a danger for commodity work.
Yeah, well, when you said Matt, you're wondering if anybody on this call has experienced it. I have. People, not everybody knows, I was in practice, had my own CPA firm on Long Island, and excuse me, especially in the beginning years, the hours were insane. And we sort of, I can speak for myself, but having worked with so many accountants and coached so many accountants, I know that this is sort of an epidemic of a mindset epidemic, that's just the nature of what we do. And it takes a lot of time to do compliance work, and most clients have no appreciation for it. It would be wonderful if we always got pristine, on-time, accurate information, but we all know that's a fantasy. So there's straightening out the numbers and chasing the client and all the things you've got to do, and it's time, time, time. And then, of course, what do we want? We want to grow. We want to make more money. So how do we do that? We put in more hours, more work. And then we say, well, I'll delegate. That'll be great. We delegate. Now I have to oversee somebody and check the work. So it's just, we're constantly pouring in these hours, and we end up trading hours for dollars. But in the end, I thought about this. We're not trading hours for dollars. We're trading away our life. Your time is your life. That's what you got. We all get a fixed number of hours and days that we live, and we're trading it away. And because we don't know any better, we don't know what else to do. But it's a very, very high cost. And that's one of the reasons I'm really glad you're here. As we talk this through and talk through some of the options, the question becomes, what can you do about it? How can you change it? But it's a mindset we buy into. We accept it as a reality. We become a slave to the practice. We become a slave to the hours, not to mention, and this is the last point I want to make, there's a never-ending stream of deadlines, tax deadlines. You take care of one, the next one pops up. There's income tax, sales tax, payroll tax, corporate tax, personal. It's on and on. And so we go into practice. Why? Well, because I want freedom, right? I want to have my own life. I want to make my own hours. I used to joke with people when I started my own practice, I'm not a slave to 9 to 5. Oh, no. I get to go in at 7 in the morning and I can work till 8 or 9 at night. Nobody tells me when to work except me and my clients and wanting to get the work out the door. So, and I think the worst part of the hours is that you don't see any end in sight. You get these little breaks here and there, but there's really no end in sight. It really wears you down. It really does.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Rick. And I think it's right on, of course. And ultimately, what's most potent about what you just said to me is that it's not that you're trading hours, you are trading time, but it really is your life. You don't get that time back. And at first it can be, it makes sense maybe to get yourself started and all that. But ultimately, day in and day out and deadline after deadline, if you're trading your life away and it doesn't feel fulfilling for you anymore, or you're noticing you're not sure how to pinpoint what's off, you're just knowing that you're trading a lot of hours for dollars. And It's just something to start paying attention to. And ultimately, it is pieces of your life that you don't get back. The next thing, though, as you were kind of alluding to this, number two of the five dangers is ultimately your health and the stress that comes along with it. So I know that I've spoken to a lot of people who have health issues because of the stress related to the deadline work and to the hours, and who I speak to them and they sound so worn out. And I know that if I spoke to them 2 decades before, that they wouldn't be this worn out had they gotten in front of this. And so ultimately, and we realize this is just basic science, that it's nothing crazy, but if you continue to push your mind and your body in ways that are pushing to the limit and stopping, and these little sprints of getting work done over long periods of time, your body starts to feel that. If you're doing work that's really highly detailed work, and you're getting stress from clients who want it a certain way or don't get you the work in or all these things, that stuff wears on you and you feel that. And so there's a lot of accountants that I've noticed who've sort of accepted this as part of the deal and the cost of doing the work. But the reality is, and honestly, I'm sure that people even become numb to this. I'm sure that you sort of just accept this and stop paying attention to it. But the reality is that people are really stressed doing this work. And it's okay to admit that, because I think admitting that and recognizing that the health implications of the stress of the work and the health implications of working really late nights and not getting the best rest and working to the point where you need to recover for a few days, which I hear all the time from people, that's a serious thing. And so to start to acknowledge that again and to be able to move through it. Rick, I'm curious if there's anything that, either stories or anything that you've seen from your personal life or with clients in relation to this, the danger of just what this can do to your health if you're doing commodity work, or what it does to your stress levels. Do you have anything?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have a lot of stories. What happens is, we're, as human beings, we're adaptable creatures, which in some ways is wonderful. It allows us to adapt to whatever the circumstances are. But it can actually work against us in some ways, where we get used to, or we accept things that we really don't have to, but we don't really see any other choice. So we get used to it. But life is about balance. Life is about enjoying the journey, not just working. And we sometimes suffer under this myth, well, down the road, it's going to get better. Well, how about living life now? And the saddest thing that I've seen, and I'll just kind of, there's a woman that we coached, and great accountant, putting in insane hours all the time. She had young children at home, and she was doing her best, and she was totally stressed because she was a single mom, which has its own set of stresses. She felt really guilty that she wasn't being with her kids, but she had to work and provide for them. And so she was constantly torn between, where do I go? And wherever she did, it was never good enough, because if she was at work, she should have been with her kids. When she was with her kids, she should have been working. Her stress level was through the roof. And she said to me, what am I going to do? What choices do I have? Which is a really good question, and we have to realize that there are choices, and I know we're going to be talking about that. But it's as painful as it is, I think it's absolutely critical that you just stop for a moment and reflect on what is the impact that this doing this commodity work, the hours you're putting in, what's the impact that it's having on your stress and your health and your mental well-being. Just think about that. Are you really living the life you want to be living? Do you have the quality of life that you want? Are you able to step away from the office and enjoy long weekends or weeks off traveling, or just doing whatever it is that's important to you in life? Or have you sacrificed a lot and compromised a lot of things that you want to do, things that matter to you, and then you justify it and you tell yourself why that's okay? I think, that's a really good point you made, Matt. It's time for a very honest assessment of, your stress level and your health level and your hours level.
Yeah, totally. And I think too, we have to realize that stress is obviously there's a spectrum. And so, for some people, the stress is they're working 80 hours, and you and I have both had many conversations like that. They're working 80 hours and they're trying to balance family, although there's really no balance at that point. And that's kind of one end of the spectrum. They're feeling the physical pains, they're feeling the chest pains, they're feeling the exhaustion in the body. They're feeling that when they show up with family, they're different. They're not as patient. They're not as loving. Their mind is spinning in the stuff. And so that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is just, oh, I don't really want to go to work today. I'm not really loving this stuff. And there's everything in between that. And so it's sort of important to kind of look at, like Rick was saying, where you are in that spectrum and just to assess. But the reality is that it gets worse over time unless you do something about it. And this is something I see all the time. When I talk to somebody who's 5 years into their firm, 10 years and 15 years into the firm, those little stresses of, I don't know if I really want to work with this client, I don't know if I love this work today, that stuff, when you're a couple years into it, is magnified exponentially based on the time that you're working in the firm. So just something to pay attention to, that if you don't get in front of this, just like with your hours, it's going to take over. And that's why we're talking about it as a danger, not just that it's dangerous for the body and the health implications, but the danger is that if you don't fix this now, it's never going to get better by itself. And so you really have to, and we're going to share with you about how to do that. But it's a huge piece. So if you're feeling that, even right now, if it's not so bad and you're dealing with it, you have to be conscious of what that can evolve into. Things don't just get better. It's a little weed in the garden, and a little weed is not a big deal unless you forget about it for a couple of years. Then you don't have a garden anymore, and you got a lot of weeds to pull. So that's another really big piece. The third piece of this that I want to talk about, number 3, in terms of the 5 dangers of doing the commodity work, is your clients. And so when you're doing commodity-based work, there's a different perception of value there. And so what happens is, and I'm sure you've experienced this, you're working with clients who don't seem to fully value and appreciate you. You're working with clients that you have to chase around, clients that maybe you give them some excellent advice, maybe it's a casual conversation. They tell you, that's awesome, that's great advice, Rick, thanks so much. But then they only implement 5% of it or 10%, or they got too busy, or they didn't implement any of it. And so you're working with clients that on one level, they're good because you might enjoy the relationship. They might pay you a little bit, but ultimately beyond that, they're not clients that really bring a tremendous amount of joy to you, aside from occasionally. And so in addition to that, one of the dangers of this is, if you're doing commodity-based work, you're sort of on the line for your clients to view you very differently. And they start to put you in the box of, how much am I paying this guy? Even things that are not related to you, like how much am I paying in taxes? They start to associate that with you, even if it's out of your control. But they start to look at you differently, and you start to look and blend in with the other accountants down the road, and you start to blend in with the H&R blocks and all these. That obviously, I'm not saying that's who you are, but from the client perspective, if you're doing commodity work, they're seeing you that way. They're seeing you in the same category. Even, and Rick, I want to hear your perspective on clients and commodity work in a minute, but even the clients will look at you in regards, or in comparison with these online companies that do free tax returns and all these things. And with all the new tax laws, maybe I can just do it by myself. It's going to be a lot more simple. So the clients they're not only are the times making the accountant less valuable, but the clients inherently don't value commodity work because they can get it anywhere. So Rick, share with me a little bit about, maybe add to that, or give us a fresh perspective on one of the dangers of really the clients viewing this commodity work and viewing you as an accountant that way.
Well, the unfortunate reality is that, the definition of the word commodity means it's interchangeable. It's the same wherever you go. Now, we as professionals know it's not exactly the same. Different professionals do different levels of work. The client doesn't know that. They go basically on personality and conversation. I like this guy or this woman, and that's why I work with them. They seem to know what they're doing, but the client can't really judge it. But what will, and Matt alluded to the free tax returns that are being offered now. Well, this is just the tip of the iceberg, because reality is artificial intelligence, or as we refer to it, AI, in our profession, it's going to happen pretty quickly. It happened in a lot of other professions, right? Uber destroyed the taxi cab industry, and Airbnb, look what they did to the hospitality industry. Well, guess what? Any publication you read, any thought leaders you listen to, they're telling you that the commoditization of accounting, it's going to turn into artificial intelligence that does a lot of the day-to-day functions that you do. So not only is there the risk of losing business to that, but also the further reinforcing the client's perception that it's all a commodity. Sure, I can give you the information. Sure, you can help me, but I know all you're doing is entering it into a piece of software. So and Matt was talking about, pain in the butt clients and all that. We take what we can get, we keep what we have. I love doing live seminars, and one of my favorite questions, I know how people are going to answer, but I love asking because it gets people to stop and think. And one of my favorite question is, I'm just curious, how many people in this group have pain in the butt clients? Either they don't show up on time or the work is a mess. They complain about the bills. How many people here, nobody here's actually holding on to those clients, are they? And everybody chuckles, and you see, not all hands go up, just 90%. But, we're so stuck in that mindset of, keeping every client we can have and not appreciating the clients. And yeah, we have the ones we love and we have the ones we put up with. But at the end of the day, we tell ourselves, I need the money. So this is part of the, I call it like this web that compliance work starts to weave around us. We've talked about how many hours it pulls you in, how it affects your quality of life, this commodity perception, all of that. It's a really stuck place to be, and it's a painful place to be. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't feel like there's a way out, because that's what I know. That's my skill set. What else do I do? That's where people get stuck, Matt, more than anywhere else. What else do I do?
Yeah. Totally. And I think you hit that really well. So I want to talk about the fourth danger, which is fulfillment. And what I don't mean getting work done, although that's obviously a big piece of it. But what I mean is our personal fulfillment. And obviously it can be very rewarding to get some work done, to help somebody save some money on taxes, to, have a casual conversation about how they can, change their business and all that. But ultimately, the repetitive nature of doing the same work over and over again is a blessing on some level, and it's a curse ultimately, especially in the long run. And so, it may be a nice, comfortable way to get into the profession and to churn out a lot of work and really get comfortable understanding it. But ultimately, the work that we see accountants are doing, and as we have conversations, it's ultimately not as fulfilling as it can be. So if you ask an accountant if they're enjoying their work, they'll probably say yeah. And not much more than that. And if you dig a little deeper, they might tell you some of the things they enjoy. But ultimately, it's not very fulfilling work. So and what I will say is that that is true in relation to what else is possible. And so we're going to get into that in a few minutes. But Rick, if you can just talk about kind of the nature of the repetitive work and how the sense of personal fulfillment, and don't give them the answer yet, but that sense of personal fulfillment in relation to what else is possible may be lacking.
Yeah, so I'll speak from my own personal experience here. I really enjoyed doing tax work. I enjoyed understanding the tax code and helping clients save money. So I did enjoy that work. But when I peeled it back, what I realized is I didn't spend much of my time doing that. There were pieces of that along the way. They were like the gumdrops that made the arduous task worthwhile. But 95% of the time was spent crunching the numbers and making sure it was right and make sure you had all the pieces and then calling up the client again. So it's not, for me, and then most accountants I talk to, in the beginning it's fulfilling, but as it goes on, it's less and less fulfilling. And we sometimes mistake those little gumdrops we get along the way. Oh, this is great. I love what I'm doing because every week or every other day I get a gumdrop. But that's not what fulfillment is. Fulfillment is about having the sense of meaning and purpose, like you're making a difference. And at the end of the day, doing a tax return, I'm not against it. Like I said, I love tax work. Clients have to file it. But I don't know many accountants that could actually honestly say, I really feel fulfilled when I complete an 1120 or a 1040 or a 941 or whatever. It's inherently not fulfilling work. It doesn't give us a sense of purpose as humans. And then that wears us down more because there's the grind of the hours and there's a lack of appreciation of clients. And then there's the sense of the work is, it's not physical in terms of digging ditches, but it is hard work. There's no margin of error that's acceptable. You've got to be on your game. You've got to be thinking about a lot of different things at one time. You've got to fill in the gaps of pieces that the client doesn't have or didn't give you. So it's arduous, but I don't think we can say it's fulfilling. And because of that, again, and I see these different factors coming in, weighing a person down, and it's like it starts to become a drudgery for a lot of people with no end in sight, because this is what I know, this is what I do, this is my living. No, it's not wonderful. No, it's not fulfilling, but what else do I have? And so therefore, I just keep doing it. And I don't think about the fact that it's not fulfilling, because if I don't know what to do about it, that's just going to make me feel worse. It's a pretty crappy situation. And unfortunately, we get to talk to a lot of accountants, and it's sad for me to hear how people have convinced themselves that this is all okay. I get it. Better to think it's okay than to suffer deeper pain, but it shouldn't be okay. It shouldn't be okay with you that your work is not fulfilling every day. It just shouldn't be. I encourage you not to accept that.
Yeah, it's really strong, Rick. Absolutely. And that's why we call them dangers. I mean, this is not just it's not like the 5 things you should be thinking about. It's the 5 dangers of this work is, ultimately, when these things are operating and they're unkempt and we don't put awareness and attention on them, they're going to continue to grow and they're going to get worse, especially as you do it more. You just feel it more, you experience it more, you see it, you show up. And if you're feeling things like not wanting to go into work or not feeling fulfilled, or you get the sense that your clients don't appreciate you, or you are starting to feel it in your body or your mind by being more tired or having chest pains or whatever it is, or being, less patient or whatever it is, and you are experiencing the crazy hour stuff, that's why this is dangerous. And it's so silly to think that the firm can be dangerous, but the reality is that if we're not doing these things, if we're doing these things and we're not running our firms correctly, according to what else is possible, then that's why it's dangerous. It really takes its toll. So the last of the 5 dangers, and this is one of the most tangible of the 5, is the money. And so working crazy hours, having the toll that it takes on your health, with clients that don't appreciate you, and all the while only doing work that's occasionally fulfilling, like Rick mentioned, for all of that, which by itself is not a good equation, but for all of that, for it to equal that, you would still have financial pressures, burdens, and not have total financial freedom and abundance is a major concern of this. And so the money, as Rick was speaking to, is completely tied to hours, that you may charge a few $100s an hour or even a few $100s a month. You're still tying your time to dollars. And so you're inherently limited. So if you're working 60 hours now and you're making X amount of dollars a year, if you wanted to double that, you probably couldn't, not with the current model. So you're inherently living with this cap on your finances. And at the end of the day, we both get this. It's not just about making $1 million and getting to this crazy place, but the reality is that you should be comfortable. You should have enough money where you're able to save for retirement in a very comfortable way, and most people can't. And you shouldn't, after putting in all your life and risking your health and working with all these clients, you should never be at a point where you can't afford to go on the vacation, or where you can't afford to do the thing you want, or you can't do this or that because you're limited by money, or you can't save, or you got to work for another 10 or 15 years, not because you want to, but because that's what you have to do. And the reality is, if you worked for X amount of years and you still have to work that much longer, chances are when you get to that 10 or 15 year mark, you may not be ready then either financially. So it's not about doing the same thing longer. And I think that's inherently the problem. It's about ultimately being able to change things up. So again, before we give you the answer of how to really, remove all these dangers, Rick, I'd love to hear your perspective on commodity work and dollars.
I think of all the dangers, this is the most, it's right up there as the most dangerous, the most painful. I'm amazed, honestly amazed, when I get on the phone with an accountant and we have a very candid conversation. My purpose when I'm speaking to an accountant is to see if anything I can share, anything that could be valuable for them, help them gain some clarity on what's possible for their practice. That's my passion. And so I'll ask questions about hours and earnings and things like that. And I'm amazed at how little people are earning for how much they're putting in, and not just the hours, but their heart, their soul, the stress, everything. Not earning much. And then there are some who are earning more, but they're not fulfilled. They're not happy. They're still burned out. They don't get to enjoy it. So great. You're making money and building up a bank account. Wonderful. But so what? What's it going to do for you? So, it's sort of like this picture puzzle that all the pieces interlock. And so all the dangers that we talked about, where there is that commodity perception, where you're trading your hours, where the clients don't value and appreciate it, where you're giving up your quality of life and fulfillment to do all that. And then that piece of you don't make enough money to make it even worthwhile. It's just an unfortunate outcome of all of the above, of the commodity and the lack of value perception. And it adds to the pain. It adds to the pain, when you're doing all of that and the financial reward's not really there. It adds to the lack of fulfillment, because I think any practitioner knows that we do a lot for our clients, and a lot of what we do is unrecognized and unappreciated. And that just makes it worse. So yes, you might have that sense of personal satisfaction that I'm doing good things for my clients, even if they don't know. And that's a good thing, but you're entitled to a lot more than that. You deserve a lot more than that. You have a lot of value to bring clients. Clients don't value and appreciate it. And I think a lot of that is reflecting on us. But at the end of the day, the only measure of true appreciation and value is you getting paid really, really well for what you're doing. And one of my favorite questions, again, I have a few favorites, and I ask this all the time when I'm on the phone with an accountant. Do you honestly feel you're getting paid for the value that you bring to a client? It is extremely rare that I hear a yes. And that hurts. And just think about that. Do you honestly feel you're getting paid for your value? And if not, you got to do something about it. Don't accept that. Don't let that become okay. So as you can see, Matt, yeah, I'm really passionate about the dollar side because it's important. It's important in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think, one of my big takeaways from what you just shared is ultimately that if all these things are kind of off on one side of the scale, again, you're experiencing financial scarcity. You're feeling that, you can't do the things you want to do because you don't have money, whether that's retirement or the trip, right? On the other side, for the people that are doing really well with it, you're not able to live the life and experience the joy of having money. So when this commodity model works perfectly, at the end of the day, you're still working a lot of hours. It's leveraged out, but you're still working a lot, but you still can't do the things you want to do. So really, inherently, even and this is the illusion, but the illusion is that when this works successfully, you're still working a lot and you're still not being able to enjoy it. So when you earn a lot, you're still stuck in this thing. It's inherently this whole thing is a danger to really do this commodity-based work. It's ultimately, like Rick said, that trap. It's all weaved together, but there's this idea that it's going to be better one day, or that you can get there, or that you can make it, or if you just hire one more person and you can just, you can just do a few more returns and hire one more person, and then do this and then do this and do this, you're going to make it one day. And the reality is that the people we speak to who quote unquote made it are the ones that are still super stressed, that are still feeling it, working a lot of hours, that have clients that don't value them. They're always worried about clients coming and going. They're not necessarily feeling fulfilled. And in fact, at the top of the success pyramid of this model, they're sometimes even less fulfilled because they're so much more stressed about everybody who's working in the firm with them and all the work getting done right and all that stuff. And ultimately, yeah, the dollars are a reflection of how we're serving people. And if you have served enough people, but you're still not able to enjoy those dollars, it's just as bad as doing, being on the other end of the spectrum and not making the money. So it's really important to look at that. So ultimately, in terms of the 5 dangers, I'll just recap them again. Number 1 is hours and lifestyle. Number 2 is health and stress. Number 3 is clients and the way they value you. Number 4 is really about fulfillment, and are you personally fulfilled and satisfied doing this work day in and day out? And the last piece is the money component. And so what that really ultimately all means is that in doing this web of commodity work, that the industry is telling you and has told you that this is, or in history, I should say, has told you that this is how we're supposed to do things as accountants. What that all means is that, we're in this category of being bean counters still, and this old way of doing things and this old model of doing things. And inherently, it's not valued. You can't really, there's a few people who have major success with it, and there's a downside to that. So ultimately, this whole thing, it really just keeps us limited. And even though we see all our colleagues doing it, it doesn't mean it's right. And it's like, we're being taught things we're being shown the model, and we've learned the model from our mentors and our teachers and our professors and our bosses who, that we took over the firm from. We learned the wrong model. And so ultimately, the way out of this is really simple. It's really, really simple. And, it's sort of like simple and not easy, because it's really just doing one simple thing, but you have to kind of be really committed to making it happen and get the right support in doing that. But really, the thing that solves this whole problem is about being the trusted advisor. And it's about formalizing that relationship. And so that you can work hours that make sense for you, so that you can, instead of trading time for money, hope you're okay, Rick, you're able to trade value for money. And so it's much more leverage. And instead of, working like crazy and your health and all these things are at risk, doing really stressful, crazy work nonstop, you can do work that's a lot more enjoyable and meaningful and flexible. Instead of, clients that don't value and appreciate you, when you're the trusted advisor and when you learn to formalize that relationship and get paid for it, clients will love you. They'll stay with you forever. They'll be extremely loyal to you, and they'll be very happy to pay you well for that. The other side of that is when you can step into this role as a trusted advisor, what we see consistently is that the work is just so much more fulfilling. Because, you think about the times where you've really been able to stop and take time to serve a client. And it's a wonderful thing, especially when they take the action or they do something about it. And what happens as a valued advisor is that's where you live. That's where you start to play. And it's really taking that space and making that the priority and building the firm around those things without having to blow up your firm or anything like that. And the last piece, obviously, is that when you're doing this, when your time is leveraged, when your value is leveraged, when your health is in a better place because of this, when your clients value and appreciate you more, and when you're doing more fulfilling work, then you can get paid really well for it. And what happens is you can start saving for retirement or put away for it, and you have more control over how much you want to work, and you have more control over who you work with and all that. And the last piece, and Rick, I want to hear from you what it means to be the, how you see being the trusted advisor is really the answer for these things. But inherently, it's about just freedom. It's about getting control back over your life and your practice, and it's about getting your freedom back. And the part of you that's always resident or always known that maybe something's not right, like I know this is what everybody's doing and this is what I'm seeing, but maybe it's not right. You actually get to go and listen to that part, that intuition of you. And I actually heard Jeff Bezos from Amazon today talking in a video about how you have to make decisions sometimes from intuition and from heart and those things. So your intuition, your heart, the part of you that's known that these 5 dangers are real in your life, you can start honoring and listening to that as you step into being a trusted advisor, and everything can shift, and it doesn't have to be very complicated to do that. So Rick, if you want to share a little bit about being the trusted advisor and how that can help you solve these dangers, I'd love to hear it from you.
Yeah, I'd love to. And so we know this is the solution because the coaching work we do is helping accountants make that transformation. That's the word, transformation, into being that valued advisor. And we see what happens when they do that. And we see the dangers of the commodity work start falling away because a lot of the commodity work falls away. So here's the reality. You are a trusted advisor. Your clients love you. You do help them solve problems. You help them figure things out. The problem is we give it away, and we do it sporadically. We don't have a structure or a process. So we sell the commodity services, and we know the dangers of that. We give away the gold. Oh, by the way, here, I have a chunk of gold for you. Oh, that's so wonderful. Thank you. That was really, really helpful. Thanks. We don't even know how to charge for it. We don't know how to structure it so we can get paid for it. So what do? We give it away, and we tell ourselves, well, it wasn't really that hard. It came pretty easy to me, and I don't know how to charge for it. And besides, it helps justify my fee. It makes the client like me more, so I won't lose them, even though they're a pain in the butt to work with. So we fall into this mindset. So here's my invitation to you. I'm going to invite you to stop seeing yourself as the commodity service provider and take your stand as that valued advisor. And what a valued advisor is very simple. What does value mean to the client? Help impact my results. Take your financial expertise and wisdom and learn how to apply it consistently in a process where you're having an impact on the client results. And when you learn how to do that and how to communicate it to the client so they feel you in that role, they experience that value, what you're going to find, and I know this is true because we see it every day, you're going to find that there's an enormous opportunity out there of business owners that really want a valued advisor to help them. And it's up to you, it's on you to take your stand in that role, to understand what it means and to learn how to deliver the goods. You already got the skills, you already have the experience, you already have the knowledge. It's packaging it, it's putting it into a process, it's learning how to communicate it. And when you put those pieces together, you're going to find there's a lot of business owners who are really going to welcome that. And here's the best part. You're going to make way more money than you've ever made before. You know, we're talking about 3, 4, 5,000 a month per engagement and more. Forget the hours. It has nothing to do with hours. And when you do that, guess what, folks? You can start dropping some of the compliance work, especially the less profitable stuff, especially those pain in the butt clients. So when you really learn to step into that role, learn how to deliver it, very, very learnable, your world is going to change in the most wonderful way. And the last thing I want to say about it is when you do this, and this is based upon our observation, you're going to discover that it's the most fulfilling and rewarding role you can ever play, because you're really making a difference and you're getting paid very well for it. And you start to find that you have more time, you have more balance in your life, and you have more income in your life, and you're doing more rewarding work. This can really transform your world, but it takes you transforming your thinking and learning the process to be that valued advisor. This is an opportunity waiting for anyone who wants it. What I can tell you is the marketplace, that is business owners, are craving this. They really need help and support. They don't know where to get it. You're the answer, but you're the one who's got to make that shift.
Yeah, I love that, Rick. I appreciate how direct you are, because I think it's what people need to hear right now. And it's what we've seen, help people really go from feeling very trapped in what they're doing and sort of comfortable, sort of uncomfortable, into, like I was saying, that freedom. And so I love that. And so, really, we'll just put the offer out there for anybody who, if you're interested in really becoming that valued advisor and understanding what that journey would look like, Rick and I would love to chat with you. And so basically, we've opened up some time to do that. We have some time in our calendar over the next couple of days. And we just want to get on the phone with you if you're interested, and talk, understand your practice. Number one, we want to dive in and really get a sense of what's working and what's not working, and ultimately talk to you about how you can make that transition into being the valued advisor, so that ultimately you can get your life back, so you can get your firm back, so you can get control again. And so what we ask is this call is for firm owners who are sort of tired of doing it the way that's not serving them anymore, and really who want to grow and who want to change and who want to and are ready to take their lives back and to get control over their firm and to work less hours and to make a little more money and to serve clients better, and really to just get their freedom. So if you do want to chat, there is a link in the comment section. You can check on that in the description of this video. And we just appreciate you guys being here. So I encourage you, if this resonated with you, book the call. Rick and I will get on the phone, we'll one-on-one and just kind of spend 45 minutes to an hour. The reality is that if you show up on this call and you're totally present, you pick up the phone, you chat with us, you tell us what's going on. If you're open and honest, the reality is that this can be a life-changing and one of the best conversations you've ever had about your business. And not to brag, although I will for a second, but we know what we're doing. Like, your stuff, we know ours. And so we'd love to chat with you if you want to. The last thing we ask is that you come into this open-minded, because we're going to give you some solutions that are really going to serve you. And if you believe that your way is the best way, then you don't need to chat with us. So if you're open to finding some better solutions, if you want help, stepping into that business advisory role so you can get your hours back, take care of your health better, become more valued to your clients, do much more fulfilling work, and ultimately, make a couple extra bucks. And by the way, this would be work that is not dependent on tax season, but work that's year-round profitable. So if you want those things, get on the call with us so we can help you make that transition into being the valued advisor. So again, thanks guys for being here. Rick, I appreciate you so much. I always love doing these videos with you and picking your brain and having the back and forth. I appreciate these very much. And I hope that this served everybody who's been listening. And I just encourage you to book a call if you want to. And we'll see you guys next time. So Rick, thank you very much. And thank you everybody in the Enlightened Business community, wherever you are. We appreciate you being with us. Hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you on the call.